The Interstellar Council Chamber, an architectural masterpiece that floated in the void of deep space, was packed with diplomats, war generals, and species from across the galaxy. The discussion was grim. Another conflict had erupted on the Deathworld, a planet so hostile that most ancient species wouldn't even think of colonizing it. But, of course, humans had already been there for years. The cause of concern today was RE118, a brutal planet where the gravity was 3 times that of Earth, the atmosphere toxic to nearly all known life forms, and the local fauna made the deadliest predators in the universe seem docile by comparison. Despite all this, humans had built a colony there. Not only had they survived, but they had thrived. Now, the galaxy was at war, and RE118 had become the epicenter of a strategic struggle. The humans on the planet, rather than asking for immediate evacuation or military aid, had sent a peculiar message to the Galactic Defense Force. Come if you want, but don't expect us to leave. We've got this covered. Also, bring beer. The council was baffled. Covered? They're surrounded by hostile forces, said Ambassador Crete, his reptilian scales shifting nervously under the harsh light of the chamber. What do they mean, bring beer? A hologram of General Thomason, the commander of the human colony, materialized in the middle of the room. His relaxed posture was in stark contrast to the tense atmosphere. He was smiling. The smile only widened as murmurs filled the chamber. General Thomason, began the chair of the council, a towering avian with feathers the color of burning embers. We have received your message. The council is offering immediate military assistance to evacuate your people. The situation on RE118 is dire. Thomason chuckled. A sound that seemed completely out of place given the circumstances. With all due respect, Chairperson, you misunderstand. We're not asking for help. We're inviting you to join the party. The silence in the room was deafening. Party. Crick finally managed to sputter. This is a war. General Thomason's grin was infectious. We know, but let me explain something about humans. You see, we thrive in chaos. Deathworld. Sure, we live there. War. That's practically a holiday for us. I mean, RE118 is trying to kill us every day anyway. We've just gotten used to it. The hologram zoomed out, showing a live feed from RE118. The human colony was anything but typical. It wasn't a fortified bunker or hidden underground base. It was an open city, surrounded by lethal landscapes, towering mountains, and rivers of molten lava. And yet, it was thriving. Children played in parks, people walked their pets, and workers tended to crops growing in harsh soil. Above them, enemy ships flew, trying to bombard the colony with lasers and plasma. But each shot was deflected by what seemed to be the strangest defense mechanism the galaxy had ever seen. Giant, human-made mirrors. Why aren't their buildings being destroyed? One of the council members asked in disbelief. Mirrors, Thomason replied casually. They're really big. You'd be amazed what you can do with physics and a little ingenuity. We found out that the enemy's weaponry heats up when it hits a reflective surface, and, well, now they're basically lighting themselves on fire. You're using mirrors to fight a war. Yep, Thomason said proudly. And humor. You see, there's something about laughter. It makes everything lighter. Stressful situations, a joke here and there, and suddenly the weight of the universe doesn't feel so heavy. The council remained silent. It was hard to understand how these humans, facing a lethal environment and an army bent on their destruction, could laugh it off and even mock the danger. But that was the thing about humanity, didn't just survive in harsh conditions, they enjoyed them. General, the chairperson asked, are you suggesting that humor is your primary strategy? Thomason's grin returned. Oh, humor is just the icing on the cake. We've got some tricks up our sleeves. Oh, let me tell you something about the human spirit. It bends, but it doesn't break. We've been fighting for as long as we've existed. Deathworlds, wars, catastrophes, they're all part of life for us. But if you can't laugh in the face of it, well, then you're already winning. Suddenly, the hologram flickered. Thomason looked down at something off-screen, and the council watched as he shouted to someone behind him. Hey, Jerry, how's the barbecue going? Jerry, a figure in the background, yelled back. Stakes are almost done. Thomason turned back to the council. Look, we appreciate the concern, really, but we're going to be fine. RE118 has been trying to kill us for years, and now the enemy's just giving us more of a challenge. We've adapted, they haven't. The chairperson tilted her head. Bewildered. You are truly remarkable creatures. Thanks, Thomason said. But seriously, if you want to help, send more beer. We've got this war thing handled. The transmission cut off, and the chamber fell into stunned silence once again. Crick spoke up, breaking the tension. I don't understand them. That's because they're human, replied the chairperson. They find humor in the darkest of times and, in doing so, conquer what would break the rest of us. And so, while the rest of the galaxy continued to strategize, the humans on RE118 threw a barbecue under enemy fire, laughing at the absurdity of it all, because that was the secret to humanity's survival where others saw doom. They saw the punchline. Back on RE118, the smell of grilled meat wafted through the air, mixing with the ever-present scent of sulfur and metal from the nearby molten rivers. The colony's walls glimmered under the light of the planet's free suns, reflecting enemy bombardments with their towering mirrors. It was a scene that should make sense of humans cooking, laughing, and carrying on while a full-scale assault unfolded overhead. General Thomason leaned back in his chair, dart in hand, and watched as another plasma shot deflected off the mirrored defenses, shooting back into the atmosphere. That one almost hit their flagship, he said with a chuckle. We should start keeping score. Sitting across from him at the picnic table, a wiry woman in combat fatigues took a sip from her own drink. Lieutenant Harris, the colony's top engineer, shook her head in disbelief. Who'd have thought? Giant mirrors. I mean, it's practically something out of an old cartoon. Thomason grinned. Hey, sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. Besides, we're not just reflecting their fire, we're turning it into a light show. Harris glanced up as a particularly large laser beam bounced off the reflective surface, sending a cascade of light shimmering across the sky. Pretty sure that's not what they intended. You know, Thomason said, leaning forward conspiratorially, it's all about perspective. The enemy thinks they're winning just because they've got more ships. But here's the thing, they've never faced humans before. Not really. Sure, they've fought us in space battles and seen us in the diplomatic chambers. But this is different. They've never fought us on our home turf on a Deathworld. Harris raised an eyebrow. Home turf? We've been here for less than a decade. Doesn't matter, Thomason replied, taking another swig of beer. Humans can make anywhere a home, even a place like RE118. Hell, we've made it comfortable enough to throw a barbecue in the middle of a war. As they spoke, a pair of teenagers ran past, laughing and holding what appeared to be makeshift slingshots. One of them stopped and called out to Thomason. Hey, General, we're getting pretty good at hitting the drones. Thomason waved them off with a grin. Just make sure you don't hit one of ours. The boy saluted playfully and ran off. Harris watched them go and shook her head. Kids these days, growing up in a war zone, and they're still having the time of their lives. That's the thing about humans, Thomason said, his tone turning slightly more serious. No matter how bad things get, we find a way to live, not just survive, but live. Even on the deadliest worlds, even in the middle of a war, we build families, we make friends, we laugh. Harris nodded. It's what sets us apart. I guess, other species, they adapt. Sure, but we embrace the chaos. Before Thomason could reply, a loud alarm blared across the colony. It wasn't the usual warning of incoming firefights, was something different. Harris immediately stood up, her drink forgotten. What now? A comms officers ran up to them, tablet in hand. Sir, we've intercepted enemy communications. It looks like they're planning a full-scale ground assault. Thomason raised an eyebrow. Ground assault? They're going to land troops on a Deathworld. That's bold. Harris smirked. We're really stupid. The officers nodded. They're sending a large contingent of elite troops. We estimate they'll land within the next 30 minutes. Thomason stood up, stretching his arms as though he'd just woken from a nap. Well, looks like the real fun's about to begin. Time to make sure our guests feel welcome. Harris grinned. What's the plan, sir? Oh, the usual, Thomason said casually. Set up the welcoming committee, prepare the defensive lines, and he paused, his grin widening. Let's have some fun with it. 30 minutes later, the enemy forces began their descent. Dozens of sleek, like dropships broke through RE118's dense atmosphere, heading straight for the human colony. The enemy clearly expected to catch the humans off guard, as if landing on such a hostile world would be enough to instill fear. But this was RE118, and these were humans. As the dropships touched down, the enemy soldiers disembarked in perfect formation, their armor gleaming and their weapons at the ready. They were greeted not by desperate resistance or fleeing colonists, but by an odd sound echoing through the valley: laughter. The enemy commander, a hulking figure with red skin and forearms, frowned as he heard the distant chuckles. What in the galaxy? Then the first trap went off. A small explosion rocked the ground beneath the lead group of soldiers, sending them flying through the air for them to land in what could only be described as a massive net, suspended between two towering boulders. The soldiers thrashed, trying to free themselves, but the netting held fast, wrapping tighter the more they struggled. From the top of a nearby ridge, Thomason and Harris watched the scene unfold. Score one for the kids, Thomason said, pointing at the net. They've been practicing with those for weeks. Harris laughed. I think that was meant for one of those giant lizards, but hey, it works. More enemy troops advanced, only to find themselves slipping into pits filled with a strange, sticky substance. Others were bombarded by an endless rain of small, harmless drones that buzzed around their heads, disrupting their communications and causing chaos. The humans were everywhere, popping up from behind rocks, trees, and trenches, laughing and taking potshots at the enemy soldiers. It wasn't a battle in the traditional sense, it was more like a game, and the humans were winning. The enemy commander, now watching from his dropship, slammed his fist into the console. These humans are toying with us. Inside the colony, General Thomason was giving orders through his radio. All right, everyone, keep it up. Remember, we want them confused. The more they panic, the better our chances. And someone get the music started. Moments later, loud rock music blared across the battlefield, adding to the chaos. The enemy troops, now thoroughly disoriented, had no idea how to respond. Their strict military training had prepared them for a fight, but not for this. The humans weren't just fighting to win, they were fighting to have a good time.